Hey friends, it's Heather Kiros here with First Century Youth Ministry. And today I want to talk to you about the age of the disciples. You'll see this discussed in my book in chapter 4 of First Century Youth Ministry. It's entitled The Keys to the Kingdom, where I discuss the age of the disciples. Now, if you were much like me, you probably grew up in church and saw these pictures of these old-looking dudes who were following Jesus, and they were a little bit bald and, maybe had some of that weird back hair that older men get, right? And that's just what they look like. And so we all assumed that the disciples were all old men. But Jewish history and the Jewish educational system reveals a very different reality. If we look at the book of Matthew, chapter 17, verses 24 through 27, Jesus and Peter are the only ones who pay the temple tax. And we understand that the temple tax was only paid by those who were 20 years older and above. Therefore, we can safely assume Jesus, being a righteous man who would have not broken the law, would have paid the temple tax had his other disciples, other than Peter, been 20 years old or older. And so we see also in the Jewish educational system that young Jewish boys and girls would start out in what was called Bet Sefer. They would do this schooling from the age of 5 until about the age of 10. And then the Jewish girls would discontinue their schooling and the boys would continue on into what was called Bet Midrash, which means house of learning. And only the best of the best would continue on in their schooling into what was called Bet Talmud, which was a place where they started to interpret the Torah, right? They started to have these rabbinical interpretations of the Torah. And from there, only the most elite students would then start to follow after a rabbi. And most Jewish boys would be married by the time they were 18 or 20 years old. And so we see here, based upon the history of the Jewish culture and the history of the Bible, that the disciples were in fact teenagers. Therefore, with these disciples being probably between the ages of 15 and 18 years old, this should encourage us as youth workers. I don't know about you, but it excites me to think that the disciples were in fact teenagers, that Jesus himself used teenagers to radically change the world. And he wants to do the same with the teenagers in your midst today. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Also, you can pick up a copy of First Century Youth Ministry. Just follow the link provided in the description.